Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, and welcome to CBA Live in Accra. CBA is Commonwealth Broadcasting Association, and you're welcome to especially this platform where we're going to have a very dispassionate, frank, and very, very, very interesting discussion on the gender agenda. What is it about? How do we understand it? What role is the media playing? But you get to know and hear all about it later on in this program. But I'd like to say akwaba to all our participants. It's going to be very engaging. You're going to have the opportunity to make your comment, to actually ask questions, and if possible, challenge whatever opinion is put across by any of our esteemed panelists seated here. And by mentioning them, let me start from my extreme left. Let her introduce herself.
Angela Dramna-Boaji, a lawyer and a women's human rights advocate.
And next to Angela we have?
I'm Samuel Kwesi-Kisi. I'm a youth development consultant and advocate and a member of Curious Minds, which is a youth media advocacy group at GBC.
And?
Elvina Quason. I'm the director of Silk Solutions, a new company, and I've been in Ghana 3 months.
Okay. Then Akwaba, back home.
Modest.
Next to Elvina.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Shamima Muslim. I'm a broadcast journalist. I'm very, very passionate about youth issues, and I consider myself as an advocate for a good society. I'll tell you why shortly.
Exactly. I would love to hear that. And next to Shamima.
My name is Eden Techimaika. I'm a lawyer. I'm a businessman, and I'm the proud father of a wonderful young lady.
Thank you very much. It's always lovely to know that. Now, the struggle for women empowerment started years ago with, you know, the battle to ensure that women are able to vote, and then it goes on. But in 1995, after the Great Beijing Conference, it just spread like wildfire across the world. What is the gender agenda? That's my first question. Let me start with Angela.
Well, thank you, Gifty. Gender is about men and women, but gender also recognizes that there's a historically discriminated against group. And that is the group that we talk about when we are looking at gender issues. So basically, it's about women being equal with men, being empowered to understand their equality, their worth, their citizenship, and being persons.
When we talk about gender in a country like Ghana, we are not only talking about the roles that society associates with the different sexes. We are looking at how to ensure that people understand that they don't have to treat their girl any differently from their boy just because of her sex. We need to help communities understand this. We need to understand this as a people and be able to interrogate matters of national development with a gendered lens. And I think that is what we are all striving to do. And I look forward to this discussion where we will be looking at what role the media has played in ensuring that this happens.
Elvina.
I strongly agree with everything Angela said, and would just add that I think the gender agenda should also look at people personally, look at the women, how they view themselves, and help them to develop a strong concept of self, and that would help to filter out, I think.
If we all recognize the fact that we have to strive towards building a good society, rid of all kinds of discrimination on the basis of whatever, and to challenge all of us here at all different times in our lives. Haven't we been perpetrators of acts of injustice against each other? Haven't we been perpetrators of harassment and all of those things? So the gender agenda is a society's agenda. We're seeking a perfect society. That might not happen, but we want a good society that recognizes the ills of those society and unpack the various groups that are victims of our own actions and inactions and begin to deal with the specific problems.
Traditionally in this country, women are discounted no matter their achievements. Women are looked down upon no matter their achievements. You hear expressions like "what the way or beer," meaning you are a woman. Yes. And I think that is not good enough. I find people very well educated who should know better. I sit in court and a young lady comes to make a good presentation of her case, and all the judge and my male colleagues are looking at is her femininity and not the law she's talking, you know. And so this is a very good topic to discuss.
Thank you very much. I don't know if it's just about me, but I think you've all talked about what you think should be or how things must be. But do we really understand the gender agenda?
Even among those pushing an agenda for the equal, well, I don't want to use the term again, equalization or so, but we have them divided among themselves. Is it for equal rights, or is it that there are opportunities that should be given to women and are being denied them because they are women? So a situation where even amongst ourselves we don't seem to agree. We discuss these things a lot amongst the intellectuals, in conferences, but even out there, those that should be pushing it politically don't even understand what they should be pushing, and I think that's a problem.
Right. I think that we should begin to think about changing, putting this whole thing into certain perspective, just so that our people can understand, because it sounds very intimidating to our male colleagues. And I think that we won't go far if we continue to use these words, women's empowerment and gender equality. They feel intimidated. Thank you.
I think anytime we're looking at the gender agenda, we also need to look at the lingual fiber of our various societies. We have developed language through human experiences and actually trying to discriminate against women. Let me use where I'm coming from, Volta region. The man is called Afeto, and Afeto is translated as the owner of the house. That is the man. And then the woman is called Afeno. Afeno translated as the woman who sits in the house. So when you look at this human experience historically, we've even been using language to actually draw barriers between man and a woman. So as much as Shamima Muslim said that it is about society, what agenda do we want to set? How are we going to, I find it intimidating to also say that empowerment. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but rather we need to call something we call re-empowerment by looking at the language we've been using over the years to actually demarcate sexisms in our society.
Is it about words? Is it about language? Or we simply don't understand? Angela, let's start with you.
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, sometimes I'm not sure whether it's about resistance or it's really that we don't understand. There's an old judge who said, I don't know how to define obscenity, but I certainly see it when I see it. So it's about really, what are we looking at? Whether you call it empowerment, gender equality, it intimidates, it doesn't intimidate. Racism intimidated. What? Democrats. But when you talk feminists, then people jump. You know, so I think it's about knowing what you're dealing with. Is this fair? Is this just? Is this equal? Is this equitable? Is this something that we want for our society? Indeed, we've come far, Claire. I wouldn't have been a lawyer if some women had not taken it up to become lawyers. We've come very far. They said we could not think logically. We can't stand the rigors of the bar. We are not as intelligent as men, but now there's so many lawyers that the men are saying, oh, this has become a woman's job. You understand? We've come very, very far. So I think we need to just be clear about what we want to see of society. Whatever you call it, really. Call a rose by any name, it still smells as sweet. But that's my point.
Who are these women that are being denied their rights? Are they our wives? Are they our sisters? Are they our mothers? Could hate be the bottom line? If it isn't hate, must we not look at the language that we use to carry people along? What is the object of the whole debate? Do we intend that people will come along and shed off attitudes that reinforce discrimination on the basis of sex? If that is the object, if we pride ourselves as women who are ingenious, who are multitasking, who have all kinds of way of getting that which we want from our men. Why haven't we succeeded in this debate? Have we used the wrong premise in communicating that which we want to achieve? If it is not hate at the bottom that caused and created the inequality in the first place, what language can we use as we grow and educate our young children? What attitudes did we want to instill in them that they do not become reinforcers of the status quo? So I think there's been something wrong with the way we have communicated that women empowerment debate.
I made an observation several years ago when I was at a school prize giving day, and all the prizes were taken by girls. That same year, I was at the Ghana School of Law. All the best prizes were taken by girls. That very same year, I was at the medical school graduation, and all the prizes were again taken by young ladies. Now, I asked myself, why don't we hear of these women who pick all these prizes when they leave school? And I hazard an answer. It's because we don't allow them. We don't allow them because we are their husbands. We don't allow them because we are their fathers. We don't allow them because we happen to be their bosses. So the typical scenario at home, the man does his 8 hours at work, the woman does her 8 hours at work, they come home, the man sits in front of the television, kicks his shoes, and then he asks his poor wife to serve him a beer while she is still fixing the dinner, while she is still minding the baby. What is the man doing? Now when it comes to work, when it comes to the workplace, it is the woman who must take time off her job to send the kids to hospital. Therefore, when the promotions come, the board will say, but this woman has been absent from work so many hours this year, so let's give the job to the man. If the man had supported her at home, taking up some of the responsibilities, probably she would have gotten that promotion. So you see, let us not look at the gender agenda from the very top. We should go from the home, the very beginning. How do we bring our daughters up to look at themselves? I mean, I didn't bring my daughter, I have only one daughter. I didn't bring her up to be somebody's cook, somebody's washerwoman. No.
Sometimes when we talk about gender agenda or gender issues, gender equality, all these angles that come up make me sad. What is the word we're dealing with? Does it describe the situation we have? And if it does, why are we running away from it? What we know as advocates is that there's a situation that we need to turn around. So if I'm talking about, like I said earlier, gardening tools, there's so many of them. Which gardening tool are you talking about? Gender issues we live with. And the only way we can address those issues is to call them by the name. We are talking about equal allocation of resources without discrimination to gender. If I, by virtue of being a woman, can have access to this microphone, he, by virtue of being a man, should also have the same access. That's what we're talking about. And I like to go at it the other way. But the normal thing is, oh, he can have it. Well, you know, a woman should not be heard. When you speak too much, you're loud. But we're speaking about the issues that exist with us. And until we talk about it, we cannot do anything about it.
Let me take a short break. I promise when I come back, we're going to find out the definition for equality, empowerment, and all the other words that are being used.
Frighten us.
We'll be back. Welcome back to CBA Live in Accra, Ghana. Well, thank you very much. Interesting discussion so far. Brilliant submissions. But let me come to you and then we'll move on to our next major issue.
Right from the beginning, Angela, you did mention the words equality and empowerment. I think they're not bad words. I'm not fazed by it at all. As a matter of fact, personally, I have found myself developing quite a number of content for broadcast which are geared towards empowering women. I think that largely the fortunes of this continent can greatly be enhanced if we would give women a great place. However, do women themselves have an understanding of the immense potential they carry? Do they have an understanding of how they can use the tools and make investments and use the materials available to them and apply energy to make those changes?
When I was in Canada, I did some public speaking where we toured around speaking to youth. And I think that it starts with young people, because if we focus on the older generation, it's hard to change people's minds. If you start with the young people, because they're the future of the country, that's where the change will happen. And we toured around as part of a 411 initiative, talking to girls about the things they can do, education, career choices, about not being afraid to speak out on in things they believe in. And I think if something like that was brought into this community here in Ghana, that it could help to make a difference. For example, this event here, if we had some young children who were invited to come and witness it, they could learn from it as well.
During our conversation, we're talking about it in a very distant way, as if it's not about us, as if we're not members of society.
I totally agree with you.
And I think even since in my own experience since I've been here, it's very clear that this is a male world. It's like a man's playground. Everything that they pretty much want to do, as much as on the surface they might speak about equality and about respecting women, the same people have 3 or 4 girlfriends, can speak to me in a provocative manner as if it's fine, even if I'm there to have a meeting or talk about something quite serious. You have people thinking, how can I make this deal work? I have to be a little bit more feminine, a little bit more provocative. So I think it's very good that we have the agenda and we have gender mainstreaming and discussions. But if you actually really look at, sorry, my voice goes wobbly when I get passionate. When you really look at how we are functioning in society ourselves, we all fall into it, and it's part of our world, it's part of our society. So there's no point talking about it as if it's happening out there, because it's not. It's happening right here as we're interacting with each other.
If we should delve down into the issues of gender, you realize that women are always the marginalized group, and therefore women need to be empowered. If we are given the tools, we would be able to match up with the men and work effectively as they do. Because if you go down into the communities, you first of all need to ask who does what, who has access to control of resources, and who is actually in control of the house or in the community. And therefore we need affirmative action, which is a positive discrimination to correct an imbalance somewhere, so that women can also be at par with men.
So with all that we are saying, then how then do we expect the media to educate us, the rest of us, on the gender agenda? What words do we use? What language? How do we frame it? How do we let them get the context within which we speak?
First of all, when you fill out one of these embarkation forms, there's a question. It says gender with a question mark, and then there's M and F. And all the women will tick F. There's no transvestite word, so you can only either tick F. The men will tick M. That is the limit and extent of what gender means for very many people. The only other time you see gender mentioned is when it suggests a perception from the outside of people looking at you. The word gender does not necessarily equate empowerment, nor does it equate equality. It is just that there are two types of sex. One is male, the other is female. And how you assert yourself in your social settings is how you are defined and perceived. The media has failed, in my opinion, to educate the public on just this simple little concept. And that is why I think we have the problems we have. And I wonder if anybody agrees with me.
Well, you have a clap, so I believe some people agree with you, Sami.
Well, I know that in some places, for instance in this country, there are some media people who have taken a keen interest in issues related to women's empowerment and population and development and try to report on these. But too often, we hear things, the same things day in and day out. We know the enormous potential the media has in countries like ours. Every morning, everybody tunes into a radio station to listen to who has insulted who, on what issue. And the important issues that concern young people's development, that concerns women, especially young women, is more often than not swept under the carpet. So I think that's a question that, as media people, we should be looking at what our agenda is, what is that role that each media house wants to fulfill, and that's just something I'm hoping to hear from you as well on. But coming back to the discussion, I don't think that the people who are talking about what to call it are necessarily trying to be pedantic. I think it shows in a way how we look at this issue as a society, and looking at the fact that many of the important positions in this country are held by men. Take Parliament, for instance. I think that, if you like, one shortfall of this whole discussion has been our inability to engage men effectively. Most of the reactions that we get from men is also because they do not understand well enough. A few years ago, I was teaching some young people, children, in a village around Bojase, and I encountered two incidents that really got me thinking. One was where one girl who was particularly excelling at the program we're having just stopped coming, and I tried to find out why. Her mother had pulled her out, and she was in JSS 1 at the time, and the only reason for pulling her out was because her big brother got to JSS 2 and quit. And as a girl, the mother does not think the girl has the right to go beyond where her big brother went. And I had to take an intervention, go speak to the parents and try to explain to them that it is fine for the girl to go on. And I think that, you know, at the very basic level, it is this fundamental understanding that we don't have.
Media is simply the manipulating sight and sound, what you read, what you hear, what you see, to transmit ideas. Now, an example I'll give you is that I went to visit my mom the other day, and my little nephew, who's 8 years old, was watching an Indian film with her. So I asked him, I said, Asa, do you understand this movie? He said, yes, I do. I said, you're only 8 years, so I thought it was too complicated. He said, oh, it's easy. Because I was thinking national, you know, like theater, conflict, all this. He said, no. This boy likes this girl. And this other boy also likes this girl. So the two of them have to fight for the girl. There it is. What people go to university to talk about, conflict, he explained it in one sentence. What I'm saying is that it is being transmitted, ideas are being transmitted as early as primary school. People are getting gender ideas of what is supposed to, and it's all through the media. So the media, let's not limit it, like she said, to just one thing, but it's coming through the way we dress, the way the pictures are shown, internet, newspaper, everything. It's all there. Whether sometimes you intend to transmit an idea is always being transmitted.
The media is struggling in Ghana with this whole thing because we're all struggling. Because actually we're living halfway between two different worlds. If I think back to when I was a child and we'd go to the village, actually my grandmother and her female friends were not subjugated in the way that we talk about women being subjugated. Were not actually under the kinds of, I would say, this funny kind of sexualization of things that Elvina mentioned, because I think in our society before education, we had a different place for men and a different place for women. And I know that my grandmother, she actually had the role of advisor to two different kings where we were. But because of education, that thing's been lost in our family. And I think we don't like to talk about this, but actually in our education and in our westernization, we've lost a lot of the stuff that kept our society working. And we ignore it, and actually we keep looking westwards for all of the corrections to the ills. But on this case, I think why people have been struggling with the words is actually because we know it's not about being the same, is actually something about respect. It's something about opportunity. And in some ways, I think, even when we look at women in the market, we totally, in these kind of discussions, ignore poor women or women in the markets who actually have a lot of money. They just didn't go to school. They're very, very equal. They trade across countries. Nobody, you know, people call it informal market. Their money is just as hard and as strong as anybody else's. So I think we need to re-language what we talk about by being inclusive and actually being willing to go back to before we were in the classroom for some of the answers that we're searching for.
So do I get the impression that words, no matter how they are defined in the dictionary, may have a different meaning or impact or import when it comes to Africa?
I have a concern, and the concern is that there's a theory in sociology called the subaltern. And since your question is about the media with respect to gender, my question is, who gives right to you as a media person to speak on behalf of the woman in the village? Do you have the right? Did she ask you to?
As journalist, you're supposed to be speaking for people. That is what you're supposed to be doing. At least that's what I learned in school. You speak for the people. You say what is on the minds of the ordinary people, and that's what we do at Joy FM. So it's a right that it's given to us once we take up that mantle.
And I don't know what is happening elsewhere, but here in Ghana, when people have problems, they don't go to the police station. The first point of call is the media, and they expect you to help them out. So that here in Ghana, it's even giving us added responsibility.
With the simple definition of media, I've got to know that even men of God are part of the media. Because we speak to so many people outside of our families. Now, my problem has got to do with the platform. As we speak here now, so many women, let's go to the Nima streets, they are there working very hard, they are in the markets, they won't get to see and hear this. So I think that we need to bring down the platform, get to the people, and the young men or the guys who are also supposed to listen to us, they may also be at other places. And there are so many development of electric gadgets said that people do not even watch GTV as it used to be. So what can we do to get down to the people, either to the market women, to the guy on the street, so that, because they are very important, so that this doesn't become a kind of intellectual exercise, and we do and we leave it and go. Thank you.
That is why it's a debate. We are talking about it. We are, Jojo, do I have, yeah, let me come to you, young woman.
If you ask me what empowerment is, I would say that it's about being able to make certain decisions without someone looking down on my decision. So I think that is why sometimes we also go wrong when it comes to these market women or women in general. Every woman has a status. And if you look at the market woman in the market and you think she's not empowered because she's selling in the market, we may be wrong. Because it's actually that is keeping her going on. We always have to understand the context within which these women work before we say that because she's carrying something on her head. And we find this a lot, especially when the West is reporting something about Africa. They say, okay, she's carrying something on her head, so she's not empowered. But it's wrong. I come from a matrilineal system where it's only the women that rule. And every decision that's being made is made by the women in the family. So how do you convince me that I'm not empowered because I'm carrying something on my head?
It looks as if everybody's attention is geared towards women, 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 women. I believe sometimes the women are the doom of themselves in the society. Why am I saying so? A woman very well empowered, lucratively employed, will wake up in the morning, look up to the husband and ask him for housekeeping money. Now, for the fact that you go to demand of your housekeeping money means you are subjecting yourself to the rules and regulations of the man in the house. If you want to come up with a man, it means that responsibility should be shared.
It depends.
But in our society and in our continent, men are always look up for what is good in the society. When it's difficult, you run to the man. When it's hard, you call upon the man, making yourself a subject for the man to at least exert whatever energy or power that he has over you. Now, even if you look at our culture, for instance, I am aware that the naming, even in, let me use accounts, We have some prefixes that suffixes that we use at the end of our names, which are so diminutive. The man has name like Asante, and you hear the woman called Asantewa. The wa at the end of the name is a diminutive suffix, meaning small. So at the end of the day, the woman is called Asantikitwa, small Asante, if you have to translate the name. So the society itself has created in us the diminutive nature of women. So if you want to maybe talk about gender and women, then we have to look at it from the society, the naming, and then the culture that we live in.
For as long as the media is a reflection of the bigger society, for as long as the men and women in the media are the men and women in our homes who have imbibed the same attitudes of, you know, inherent discrimination sometimes, you know, then there's an extent to which we might not passionately push the gender agenda. Because that which you truly believe in is that which you passionately propagate and get people along. But that which you inherently do not believe in, you do it with a laissez-faire attitude that is unconvincing of the path that you expect others to follow. So two things I see here. There's policy issues and there's the issue of our attitudes built over time by our cultural inheritance and what have you. We can't seek to tackle the issue of the gender agenda without also seeking the right policies that will right the wrongs if you see it as a wrong. So maybe that's where the affirmative action issues will come in, the naming issues. Why must we have a Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs? Meaning that women issues are children's issues. I agree that the broader framework is that minority rights cuts across, and women issues also sometimes come not under minority but vulnerability, right? And why must we have at the Shraj Ministry the decks for gender and what was the second word? Gender and disability. Yes, disability rights are also there. There are also minority, perhaps vulnerable groups. So
but Shamima, isn't it because for a long time these issues have been ignored? To start to raise them, to start to highlight them, we need to pay specific attention to it.
So unpack them and deal with them specifically, because you don't want your intervention to reinforce the problem or the perception of weakness where it comes to women issues by assigning, you know, women issues to other issues that are equally important.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at, is the media failing the gender agenda? Are they drawing us back, Shamima? We'll be back. Welcome back to CBA Live in Accra, Ghana, the Gender Agenda. CBA is Commonwealth Broadcasting Association. We've heard from Nigeria, we've heard from Cameroon, from Sierra Leone, so much from Ghana. Let me go to Tony from the UK.
I think it's been fascinating listening to this discussion so far. And I feel like I've just gone back in some sort of time warp to 30 years ago in the UK, where there was the panel, which is absolutely charming and beautiful and lovely, and everybody here, where a set of middle-class people sat around and pontificated about the problems of other people. And that's just what I think we're doing today. All we're doing is talking semantics. We're not actually getting to the root cause of the problem. Most people, it sounds from what we hear today, are all in agreement. We all want equality, equal opportunity, empowerment, whatever the words are you use. We're all wanting the same thing. So what the problem is how do you deliver it? It's not actually what it's called, what it is, or how it works, or whatever. It's how you deliver it to the people that it matters to. Here, this is not the problem. This is clearly not the problem. The problem is somewhere else. And we have the same problem in the UK. You may think it's also milk and honey there, but it's not, because the guys in the council estates go out in the boozers and they go and drink 8 pints of beer and they go back and knock their wives about. Yeah. And it's the same problem. Except, you know, what we've got to try and do is educate people. And that's where it comes down to, it is how we educate people and how does the media actually get to those people. Not to the middle classes, because that's not the problem. You've got to get to the working classes and sort out what the problem is. We did it, I think, to a certain degree in the UK via soap operas. and we managed to give you a quick example. When AIDS and HIV hit the shores of the UK, the government leafleted the entire country about the problems of HIV and AIDS. And we did it on a TV show that I was working on at the time called EastEnders, and we actually realised that was great. Leaflet the world, it's fantastic, except one of our characters was illiterate, so they couldn't read it, so it didn't mean anything. And those were probably the people you needed to hit the most. So through the TV and through that story, we managed to get that message across and hopefully reach people. You're not going to bombard it and you're not going to win every time. It's going to be a dripping effect that you might be able to change some people as you go along. And that's what I think the media needs to do. And I think it needs to look at how it's going to approach it, how it's going to attack that problem and get to the root cause of the problem.
Can I just tell him why that remains a challenge? Because you have editorial teams that are mostly male dominated, and you have people argue with you when you want to push perhaps a woman issue or a woman's program that these are hard issues for radio. They don't give us the necessary mileage, and they tag you as the gender woman in the office. And I'm talking about sometimes your personal experience, because you work with male dominated environments. Sometimes they don't see the perspectives that you see when you want to push for some spotlight to be put on an issue that is clearly of importance as it comes and concerns discrimination against women in all of its forms and violence against women in all of these forms. How do you deal with that when the editorial body does not recognize the importance of the platform to push an agenda?
But Shamima, isn't it also about media ownership?
Exactly. I was going to come to that. The media is there to make money. You feed the people what they want to hear, what they want to read. If the general attitude of the society is such that gender issues are not interesting, if they take the Daily Graphic and they will just skip the gender page and go on to sports, then we are fighting a losing battle. And I was thinking exactly along the same lines as my friend, that you don't preach to the converted, you preach to the people who are actually the problem.
We have a brother here who's done some interesting study between 2002 and 2003. I find it quite revealing.
And we looked at Daily Graphic and the Ghanaian Times. The reason is that the Ghanaian constitution enjoins the state-owned media to give equal coverage to all opinions. So if that is the case, then male politicians and female politicians should get equal coverage in the media. However, in a newspaper of 8,400 that were analyzed, in terms of news spaces, the women were given only 9.8% as against 90.2% which were given to the male politicians. And then when you come to the story frequencies, which is also very appalling, women politicians were given 9.4% story frequency as against 90.6% stories on male. So this is the challenge that we have to look at. And I think we need to look at gender agenda also through consistent media monitoring, which has always been failing in our approach to some of these gender agenda initiatives. Thank you.
Well, before I come to you, Mr. Posu, let me add to this. I have a platform, I created a platform where it's known as The Standpoint. Listen to the feminine side. I've said over and over again that it's a women's discussion program. It's supposed to be for women. But yet, over and over again, I get pressure from men. We also want to be on. We also want to tell our story. You go to look for sponsorship, you were told that, well, why don't you give the men a chance to come and talk about it, and then maybe the money is... But I have an agenda. The agenda is to make sure that the woman is holistically educated, enlightened, empowered to understand. So we talk about whether broken heart, health, politics, marriage, sex, even how to, be intimate with your partner. We talk about it. But consistently, the men think that they also deserve to be given the same platform that is created for women.
That means the program must be working, because if it was a terrible program, they wouldn't want to be on. So that's very good. So women, executives, middle managers are often part of the problem. When they go out to put together a panel, they always tend to favor the men. because they tend to think that men are more serious and the audience wants to hear from men and not necessarily from women. Often female producers will go out to do a vox pop, and instead of coming back with maybe 8 or 10 voices of whom 4 would be women, 4 would be men, or 5 women, 5 men, often it's 8 or 9 men and 1 woman. I'm just wondering what that is about. On my own program, I do a paper review. I always make sure it's 1 male, 1 female. Because if you look at the mainstream programs on BBC and elsewhere, often they'll have 2 or 3 men, and they won't even think about the women. Or on Question Time, which is a similar format to this, it's nearly always men, because women are considered serious on the economy, on domestic politics, on the European Union or international affairs. That has to change. There are signs it is, but my concern is that in Ghana, where I'm sure you're going to go through an explosion of female executives in the media, they may carry the seeds. Hallelujah, somebody. But it's not just about having lots and lots of female executives, because the experience in the UK, and possibly in the US, is that they often still perpetuate that sexist kind of thinking that they're supposed to be fighting.
What I really want to make clear is we women ourselves sometimes discourage ourselves and our women growing up in the house. Before the child even reaches 16 or 17 in the home, she feels she needs to be in the kitchen and cook and cater to her man, which is not cool, because if she has the opportunity to go and get educated just as the man, she will be or reaching for the same stars that the men in the house will be reaching for. So it starts from home. If we're going to discourage our children from the beginning, like we were having an argument minutes ago about if you keep telling your son he's an idiot, he's going to grow up thinking he's an idiot. So let's encourage the children, not just the boys or the girls. We don't need to differentiate man or woman. Give them the same encouragement. So when they step up to the panel and, you know, decide the careers and things that they want to do, they come out with a belief that's coming from home.
I come from a country, by the way, where women's equality is a far cry. It's not at all the case. And I am also a passionate advocate of women's rights. And I just think in terms of the media, one point I'd like to make, and I think we should all be ashamed, all of us media practitioners, and certainly here in Africa, the case of Nafisa Diallo. I mean, what a woman she was to take on the head of the IMF. Tell me, where is that story gone? Where is that story gone? Why aren't we talking about her? And this is the problem in terms of who are the women we're listening to. If you want to change attitudes, if we do not have women talking out, if we do not have on every panel, if we do not have a women's voice, then we're going to be talking about the gender agenda until the cows come home.
In Ghana, at least so far as chieftaincy is concerned, I want all of us to know that the Council of Elders, after all deliberations, will tell you we are going to Abriwa. And that Abriwa from time immemorial is the most powerful. You can go to the Asante Kingdom, whoever puts the Asante Hini there is Abriwa. Okay? So the power of women is not something, Abriwa means grandmother.
The old.
Okay? So no matter what, they will still go. I come from Volta region, from Hohwe. Our chieftaincy system follows the same thing. No matter the case, be that Briwagbo, let's go to the old lady. And I'm telling you, it's not a joke.
We look at media. We have a success story in America, and her name is Oprah Winfrey. And so, but she had to fight to get to where she is. And when we don't see media standing up, doing their job, what you see is Occupy Wall Street. And what's happening now, when media does not do their job, what you're seeing is social media taking over now. So the question we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing as journalists, as broadcasters, and what is the future when it comes down to social media when we don't do our job?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my time is almost up, but I want to come to my Director of Administration. He has very interesting views about especially what the Quran says about the Muslim woman.
We've been told that in Islam we have relegated women to the background, but that is not how it is. It gets into the Quran and it addresses everyone, every believing man, every believing woman. Everything that they talk about the two genders, if I should say that, because we were doing research, and when we used the word sex, a certain man said, I did it 5 times. So in research, you find out that gender is a better word to use. But in Islam, we're told that paradise lies at the feet of your mother. If your mother is alive and you do not go to heaven, you have yourself to blame. So far from that, in spite it's because of the constitution of the person as nature provided. That's why when Muslims are doing certain things, we have the men in front and the women, but we do not actually practice segregation as it is. All people were born equal. That is basically what Islam talks about. So the issue of relegating women in the background in Islam doesn't really arise. It's only for matters of nature that you see us at prayers, we do things differently. And in the family, the raising of the children and everything is being done equally. I was just whispering to my sister here that I'm a suffragette or whatever it is because the way I treat my wife. She's going to maternity and I go along with her. The day she was bringing forth, I was by her side, and the nurses were asking me, what common man of you, instead of going to where you are standing by your side. I said, but we did the thing together. If she's I have to support her. So now it's time for us to just look at the issue of the gender agenda and look at things that we are taking out. We can look at it from different ways. What is happening in the US is not what is happening in Ghana. Look at global issues, access to education, access to health, infrastructure, and all these things. These are the other things which you have to look at, because every society is historically conditioned. And even with the religions that we have been imported into us and imposed upon our own cultures.
There seems to be an apparent laziness on the part of media practitioners in following formulaic, typical approaches, stereotypes. It's in our films, it's in the way we work. The man is this, the woman does that, and unknowingly we kind of perpetuate and we kind of stamp the kind of thoughts, the kind of approaches, the kind of feelings that we have regarding our roles as men and women. And nowhere more than in the media is this obvious, is this clear. And until we begin to think, get even more creative, it's not going to change. Now, this is not something that will happen in a year's time, but it's a culture, and that's why we need to engage the children.
I've been talking to female politicians while I've been here, and I'm interested that female politicians and the lack of them in this country has hardly been mentioned in this debate today. And that could be because you don't think they're effective, or even if there were more politicians, maybe you don't think they're going to be effective and change women's lives at the level where women are struggling day to day in this society. But I'm interested in what the gentleman said at the front about the way the media treats women, that the women I've talked to who are politicians say that no wonder women don't want to become politicians when they're abused and insulted and attacked in a way that male politicians are not. And if women don't want to speak out, they'll go to a certain level at the district level in politics, and then they don't want to go any higher because they see what flack women get. Yeah.
As a country, women here, I believe, are probably better off than most other places that I know. But we still have a long way to go. Media has a place to play, certainly. The thing is that the mindset of the people, are the people ready to take the message that you want to pump down their throats? That is the issue. Yeah. We must start from the children's level. There was a time when my son came from school and he was upset because he wanted the first prize, but a lady got it. A little girl got it, and he went on, and she's a girl. I said, what's wrong with that? I immediately had to cure him of that. But it showed a mindset he may have picked from elsewhere, that a girl should not be the one to take that prize. It must be he. We are a lost case, our generation. But we must start from the very young, educate them, let them. If I want to show my daughter how to cut onions, I will show that to both my son and my daughter, because they both eat. Yes. I shouldn't let my son go play whilst my daughter learns how to cut onions. I tell them, look, you may be the next president of Ghana, but now we are learning how to cut onions. And it has to be an equal opportunity thing. So I think that the media must be focusing more on children.
So, in as much as we are demanding recognition and empowerment and non-discrimination, it won't happen if we don't step up to the plate and put ourselves on the line of fire. And I like that about politics. You can't want to change policy which affects your life and my life without not wanting to play in the heat. It is hot, you have to get there. We have to encourage as many of us to be there and be present and take the flag so that we make the road easier for those who are behind us.
I'm taking up from a point that one of the participants said about media being a reflection, manipulating a reflection. It links exactly with what the other gentleman was saying. The media needs to recognize that there are other ways to show women. It doesn't need to be a special gender situation. If a minister, a female minister has made a statement that's relevant, focus on what she's saying. Don't focus on something ridiculous like, oh, she's going to be a bully or something else like that. It's focusing on the good that they are doing and changing that story and changing that representation. That's what the media should be doing, I feel.
Sami.
Well, I think that the media may be doing well in some cases, but as far as discussions on development issues are concerned, that there is still a lot to be done. I get a bit worried when I go for a program and you see the journalists or the media people sitting there just chatting among themselves, only to come and ask you for a photocopy of a speech that was made at the end. And I think we need to raise the standard of, you know, what we expect of our media people in this country. I think that until we are able to help men understand that by empowering women, we are not disempowering them necessarily, we will have that challenge. We still have issues where men, because they don't understand what is happening, intimidate their women to go and get microfinance that is supposed to help empower the women. They take the money from them because there is still imbalances of power in the house, and the woman is the one that is stuck with the trouble of paying this loan back. So these are just examples of the kind of situation we have when there are all these imbalances, and I think we should be looking at helping to change these mindsets.
Okay, Angela.
Well,
with regards to
quickly,
the media,
yeah,
and
I mean,
pushing the agenda.
We should understand that gender inequality is pervasive. It's in this room. It's not just about the lower class woman or the middle class woman. It's everywhere. Economy, law, culture, religion, media, name it, everywhere. It's in this room. So we need to understand that to be able to make an impact, we need to understand what we are talking about. I like what Samuel has been saying. I'm a middle class woman. I grew up with blinkers on. Okay, I didn't know about gender inequality until I woke up, until somebody woke me up with information. And issues about stereotyping, empowerment, gender inequality, whatever you call it, will not matter any longer if we all really understand what it is that we are talking about. He's able to communicate what the issues are because he has gone through a certain kind of reorientation, and that's what we need. If the media doesn't go through a reorientation, we're going to get people shooting off from different sides of their mouth. I think first thing is capacity, is understanding, getting awake.
Thank you very much. So is the media hampering the gender agenda? Is it that the women are not coming out to speak, or is it that the media is not making the women comfortable enough? Or could it be that women think that they are being misrepresented in the media, and therefore why should I do it? Those of us in this room are going to continue to discuss it. Those of you at home, please continue discussing this, because no matter what we think or no matter what we want to do, the gender agenda is here to stay. It's in our face and we'll have to deal with it. Thanks for watching. Let the debate continue.
Now let's take a closer look at the velocity selector. The velocity selector is a device which is used to separate charged particles.
For former President Hosni Mubarak, that slogan goes, they've removed Mubarak and replaced him with the Field Marshal that's their idea of change. Clearly people are saying changing figureheads is not enough. What is needed is a complete overhaul of the system, which is why tonight